The loneliness after divorce was the hardest thing I ever tried to fix. I filled every quiet moment I could find: the calendar, the phone, relationships, work, anything not to feel the weight of the silence. What I didn't know, what took me moving into my own home alone for the first time in 18 years to understand, is that God wasn't expecting me to fix it. He was using it. And the 6 words he said in that silence changed everything. Today, I want to show you what he said and why the loneliness you are running from might be the most important invitation you have ever received. Hey, welcome to Beyond Believing. I am Katie Ann, and today I am sharing what happened in my living room the night I moved in to my own place for the first time in 18 years. Then I'm walking you through one of the most complete stories of God meeting someone at their lowest that exists in all of Scripture. It's in 1 Kings chapter 19 and showing you why it was written for this exact season of your life. Let's go. I want to tell you about a moment I have never fully described out loud. I had just moved into my own place for the first time in 18 years. And for 17 of those years, I had not even been to the bathroom alone. I had not had a single hour that wasn't spoken for by someone else's need. I had been a wife, a mom of 5, a manager of everything, and then overnight, I was none of those things in the way I had always been. As I sat down in my living room, the quiet was so loud, so uncomfortable, so completely foreign, and every part of me wanted to do what I had always done: fill it. For some of you, that looks like relationships, reaching for the next connection before the last one has even ended. For others, it is work. If your hands are full, you don't have to feel. For some of you, it is your children. Being needed is easier than being still. And for others, it is the group chat, the packed calendar, the constant motion that keeps the quiet from ever quite catching up. Whatever it is, we use it because the quiet feels dangerous. And none of that worked. Not one thing I filled the silence with touched the ache underneath all of it. I didn't understand why until I finally stopped. Because here is what I know now that I didn't quite understand then. The loneliness after divorce is not the absence of the right people. It is the presence of God. And you don't recognize it yet because you have never been still long enough to hear him. I had spent 18 years surrounded by noise I created, and God had been trying to get a word in the whole time. And when I finally sat in that living room, defeated, exhausted, genuinely alone for the first time in almost 2 decades, he finally could. But before I tell you exactly what he said, I need to take you to a story, because what happened to me in that living room is not a new story. It is one of the most complete pictures God ever gave us of what he does when one of his own hits the bottom. Now, before I take you there, I want to name something. The thing you are most afraid of right now, if you are being completely honest, is lying down, stopping, letting the quiet actually be quiet, because you are terrified of what you will feel if you do. You have been moving so long that being still feels like giving up. Elijah knew that fear, and his story is in your Bible for a reason. Elijah had just called down fire from heaven, the greatest spiritual victory of his life. He had proven publicly, dramatically, undeniably that God was real and God was powerful. And then he ran alone into the wilderness, sat under a tree, and said in 1 Kings 19:4, "It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." He didn't ask for strength. He didn't ask for direction. He didn't ask God to show him the next step. He said, "I'm done. Let me die." After his greatest victory. And here is what God did. He did not rebuke him. He did not send a vision. He did not give him a mission. He did not give him a pep talk. He did not give him what he asked for. He gave him what he needed. God sent an angel, bread and water. Elijah ate and slept, and then the angel came back a second time. Not once, twice. Fed him, let him rest, fed him again. And the second time in 1 Kings 19:7, he says, "Arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you." He did not give Elijah what he asked for. He gave him what he needed. God knew what was ahead. Elijah did not. And in 1 Kings 19:8, he says, "And he arose and ate and drank and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of God." 40 days, not his strength, the strength of what God gave him at the bottom. And here's what I want you to hear. He could not have made that journey without the rest. He could not have stood in the presence of the Lord without being sustained first. He could not have anointed kings, trained Elisha, raised up a generation. None of it was possible without the season under the tree. And this right here is why fighting the quiet prolongs the promise. Every way you fill the silence, every relationship, every project, every packed calendar used to outrun the stillness, it is not moving you forward. It is delaying what God is trying to give you. The rest and preparation. You cannot receive what you are too busy to hold. Even Jesus withdrew. Wilderness, mountain, guarded, repeatedly, alone to pray, to be replenished by the Father. If the Son of God required solitude to sustain his ministry, you are not failing by needing this season. You are being made ready. Elijah traveled 40 days. He arrived at Horeb, the mount of God, and he went into a cave. He hid. After the fire from heaven, after the angel, after 40 days of supernatural provision, he was in a cave. And I need you to hear this because this is where you are right now. You are not hiding from activity. Your calendar is full. You are hiding from the judgment, the weight of what people in your church, the stranger online, your neighbors, or your family say about your divorce. Whether it was biblical, whether you tried hard enough, whether you fought the way you should, whether you sinned, whether God is disappointed, what your community thinks, what it cost you, not just your marriage, but your sense of belonging, your spiritual covering, your place in a community that was supposed to be safe. The divorce didn't just end a marriage. It ended a version of who you were. And like Elijah, you have arrived at the mountain of God and you are hiding. And God came to him and he asked in 1 Kings 19:9, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Not because he didn't know. He knew exactly where Elijah was and exactly what he was doing. He was asking so Elijah could hear himself. He was making him face God, face the answer, because you cannot receive your next assignment until you have named where you actually are. And Elijah answered, "I have been very jealous for the Lord. The people have forsaken the covenant. I alone am left, and they seek my life." I alone am left. That is your voice right now, isn't it? The divorce left you feeling spiritually alone in a way that has nothing to do with whether people are physically present. Your community may not fully understand. Your church may not fully support you. You may be carrying this largely alone, and you have been quietly saying to God, I alone am left. And then God said, go out and stand on the mount before the Lord. He invited you out before the storms arrived. And then in 1 Kings 19, verses 11 and 12, it says, and behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. These were not small disturbances. The wind tore mountains apart and broke rocks to pieces. An earthquake, a fire, earth-shattering, mountain-splitting storms. And Elijah hid himself further inside the cave. That is not weakness. That is human. When you start to step out, when you begin to come toward the mouth of the cave and the storm arrives, it feels like confirmation that you should stay hidden. The custody battle intensifies. The judgment gets louder. Another relationship fails. The community feels further away, and every part of you wants to go deeper in. But God was not in the wind. He was not in the earthquake, and he was not in the fire. He was in the whisper. And the whisper draws you out where the storms never could. You cannot be driven out of hiding by force. You have to be drawn out by love. And when Elijah heard the still, small voice, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went and stood at the entrance of the cave. He came out, and God asked him again. 1 Kings 19:13, what are you doing here, Elijah? Same question, same answer from Elijah, but something had changed. He came out, and that was enough. And God did not rebuke him. He did not correct his choices. He did not tell him he had wasted time in the cave. He gave him a map. He said to go anoint Hazael, king over Syria. Go anoint Jehu, king over Israel. And go find Elisha. Pour your oil on him. Pass on your legacy. Raise up the next generation. Build up God's people. The life ahead of Elijah was larger than the crisis that put him under the tree, more significant than anything he had done before. And none of it was possible without the season in the wilderness, without the rest, without the food, without the cave. And then God answered the thing Elijah had been saying all along. 1 Kings 19:18 says, yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal. You are not as alone as you think. The community ahead of you is not the one you lost. God has reserved people you have not yet met for the season you have not yet entered. The loneliness you are feeling right now is not your permanent address. It is your preparation address. I was sitting in my living room. The quiet fell over me the way it does when you have spent 18 years avoiding it. And the weight of everything I had lost hit me all at once. And I heard God say 6 words I was not expecting. Now that I have your attention. It was his version of, what are you doing here? Not anger, not disappointment, not why did it take you so long? Come out of the cave. I have been here the whole time. I was not in the noise. I was not in the relationships you used to outrun the silence. I was not in the calendar or the work or the busyness. I was in the whisper. Every way you have been filling the quiet, it wasn't just coping. It was keeping you from the intimacy with God you have been craving the entire time. And God has a map for you too. Not despite the loneliness, because of it. The preparation you are receiving in this season is proportional to what he has prepared for the next one. You are not behind. You are being sustained. And what he gives you here will carry you further than you can currently see. The loneliness you are feeling is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is evidence that God is preparing you for something. You are not under the tree anymore. You have been fed. You are being sustained. You have been traveling in the strength of what God gave you at your lowest, even when you didn't know it. You were at the cave entrance, and he is asking, what are you doing here? Not in judgment, in love. Come out. The whisper is speaking, and it is carrying something with your name on it. What you fill the quiet with next will determine how quickly you receive it. One question to sit with this week. What are you filling the quiet with? Not to create guilt, to create awareness, because God is at the entrance of your cave. The whisper is already there. You just have to come out. This is the work that I do in my coaching, not to be the answer, but to point you to the one who is, to remind you that you have access to everything you truly desire and to help you begin living like it today. If that conversation is one you are ready to have, you can apply for coaching at coachkatieann.com/call. The link is in the show notes. And next week, I am going to talk about one specific way women answer that question and what God showed me about it. You're not going to want to miss it. Subscribe so it comes straight to you. I'll see you then, friend.